All right, how's it going, y'all? So Synology has just released DSM 7.2 Update 2, which is really the first big bug fix update of the DSM 7.2 setup. It has fixed a ton of actually major bugs that have really driven me and my clients crazy. A couple of them have actually been very bad, and so I'm glad they've finally got in there. Though there is an asterisk on this update because this was actually the very first update I've done my entire time running updates on Synology DSM that actually got me broken packages. It's not 100% Synology's fault due to the fact that I did click continue. I know this is going to be fine, though it was not. I will go ahead and talk about that later on towards the end of this video, but make sure when you are updating here that you could break your packages if you don't listen to the warning that says, hey, you probably should not update yet because other things are going on. But I'm going to talk about that all later on towards the end of this video. And they also did have an update to Western Digital Device Analytics, that WDDA test that was causing Synologies to say, hey, this drive has had too many power on hours. Western Digital says you should probably replace it soon for a few specific Western Digital models. That has been updated, at least according to the release notes, though I can't see the difference. And that just might be because of my specific system, but it does not appear to have changed, at least on my system. But we're going to get into that all later on. So first off, let's go into the release notes for DSM 7.2 Update 2. And you can see right now it is in a staged rollout. Staged rollout is not really quite like a release candidate or a beta. It's more of a release, right? So it's kind of what Synology does for updates. It's pretty smart, though it is kind of using your consumers as guinea pigs by having specific NAS models randomly assigned, at least according to them, randomly assigned, to have the update first. And so that way they can kind of test it on a small subsample of units before releasing it wide. It's a good thing to do overall, just in case there is a major issue. At least it only affects a small number of your users rather than all of them. Though in this case, I'm wondering if this will be pulled back due to the issues that I ran into. The previous update 1 to DSM 7.2 had a pretty minor fixed issues. However, I'm realizing now after going through this process that it was actually doing a lot more than I thought. In general, DSM 7.2 did a lot of changes to the way BTRFS works. They now have BTRFS petavolumes, which is actually having an entire petabyte of data in a single BTRFS volume. Previously, you could only have 200 terabytes. So that's a huge shift. And I think they overall did a lot of changes to BTRFS under the hood. And I think this update did a lot more than I was originally expecting, given how small the release notes are. What's even more interesting is the fact that update 1 actually came out a day after update 0, due to the fact that the original DSM 7.2 was actually rolled back due to the fact that there was an issue with units connected to the internet. So the whole update since DSM 7.2 have actually kind of been a bit of a cluster, as far as I can tell, due to the fact that there's a lot of little hot fixes going on, way more than I usually see out of Synology at least. And there were actual issues with Synology DSM 7.2, where actually I had issues in some cases with backups, which is never good. And so I'm going to go through the release notes right here, talk about everything that's in update 2 and stuff that I'm very glad has finally gotten fixed. So the first two ones right here, I'm going to essentially say are probably the exact same thing. And these were huge and actually affected two of my clients drastically. So fixed an issue where deleting snapshots through snapshot replication on the destination server might cause unused memory to not be released properly. Huge. Fixed an issue where certain models might experience unsuccessful replication with snapshot replication after updating to DSM 7.2. I'm just going to categorize these as the exact same bug fix because this is absolutely a massive thing. And so this is actually an issue that I'm very glad is finally fixed because it has actually caused serious issues with two of my clients and actually caused their on-site backups to fail. So for on-site backups for a 3-2-1 backup solution, I often use snapshot replication to replicate from a head unit to a secondary unit. So we can set up a replication every 2 hours, every hour, in some cases every 30 minutes to replicate from one NAS to the other. Snapshot replication is incredibly efficient because it does not have to do a delta to figure out everything that's changed. Because of the way snapshots work, it just automatically knows it. So it doesn't have to do a full file scan to figure out everything that's changed like rsync does. Instead, when you're using snapshots, it actually just knows, okay, he has this snapshot, I have this snapshot. These are the files that have changed in between those two snapshots. which is literally just a diff on a tree. And so it's incredibly fast and incredibly efficient. You can actually set up replications to actually run every 5 minutes. And the most difficult part about that is cleaning up the snapshots at the end. It's incredibly impressive. And so that is a great way to set up an on-site backup, because what you can do is you can actually have it set up to fail over. If you have both units on a Windows domain for all their users, you can literally fail over from one NAS to another by updating the DNS record and hitting switch over or fail over. And it is flawless. It's phenomenal. However, this bug caused that to all come crashing down for a few specific models. I have no idea which models and why, but it happened with 2 of my clients. Even though I set this up with tons of different NASs, it for some reason was messing up with 2 of these clients. What would happen is every single time a snapshot would send, the replication one, you could see a little stair step in the amount of RAM used until it eventually just ran out of RAM. No matter how much RAM you put in there, it would eventually just run out because the RAM was never getting unallocated. And so eventually you just see these little stair steps until it hit 100% RAM utilization. And then the entire thing would come crashing down due to the fact that it was trying to swap and just completely shut down and couldn't handle anything. And you actually had to force shut it down. At one point, I actually did a complete reinstall on a system and it still did not fix it. And so I'm really glad this out, because these were people's backups. And that is about the worst thing that you can have a bug with, is the backups were simply failing. Next up is an issue I never really saw due to the fact that I have very few people using SSO. And that is fixed an issue where users signing into DSM through Synology SSO might be unable to open Synology Office files. Very niche. They have to be using SSO and Synology Office. Neither one of these things I often deploy, but always good to fix, I guess. Number 4 is one that I actually saw and affected tons and tons and tons of clients across the internet, and it actually made me look very dumb a couple of times. So number 4 is fix an issue where the system might be unable to send a test email when Synology account is configured to receive notifications. This was something that if you watch my DSM 7.2 best features, this was on there because it's great. It's awesome having a mail server that you don't have to re-sign into because Gmail has changed the way authentication works or anything like that. And so it's really nice being able to use Synology's mail servers rather than having to deal with your own, because when you deal with your own, there's a good chance that your keys are going to expire, something like that. And you're not going to know because it can't send you an email. So this was a huge fix. What actually happened is I was on a call with a client. I was like, yeah, DSM 7.2 is great. Now we can just use this mail server. And I'm going through and I'm going in and I'm coming in here. I'm going into control panel, notification. I'm like, yeah, you can just send a test email right there. Go ahead and check your inbox. I'm sure it's there. And the test email never got sent. So that was a huge fix. I can now confirm I did get that email, and so that is back to working. I wonder if it was being routed to like a Synology account notification or something like that because of the way it's worded. But either way, very glad that that is fixed, and so that is huge. Then there's number 5. If you've not seen my video on Western Digital Device Analytics, I'll leave a link down in the description below to that video. Essentially, Western Digital was using WDDA to mark drives as warning that they needed replacement if they had been powered on for more than 3 years of power on hours. This is something that is a very low amount of time for a hard drive, and drives do not need replacement every 3 years. And it was using the WDDA test to throw that warning, and actually made one of my clients purchase all brand new Western Digital drives, which is exactly what they wanted, even though those drives were perfectly good. And so they have adjusted the suggestions generated by WDDA. However, I've not seen how this has been adjusted. I'm going to talk about this at the end of the video because I'm actually going to show you what WDDA spits out to the end user that they will see in DSM. And I don't think it's changed. That might not be Synology's fault. That actually might be because my model does not use WDDA. Any of the 23 models and beyond will no longer be having WDDA, because Synology has been removing it from all of those. And so that may be why. We'll talk about that later. Then 6 and 7 are both ones I never actually saw, but both look pretty critical. Fix an issue where certain models might not display the corresponding storage pool after creating a volume. Definitely not good to have that. And then fix an issue where the warning for checksum mismatch did not provide the file path for the file containing the error. So that is a good one to have. because it's very nice being able to see what file is corrupted. Once again, I very rarely ever see checksum mismatches unless the system's got a lot of issues. And so I very rarely see this, and I never saw that issue. Finally, they fixed a CVE regarding GhostScript. Always good to see. So those are the update notes, and so they look great. But I do want to give you my story on how I updated and how I messed everything up. So first off, I was running this test unit on DSM 7.2 update 0. I'm not actually sure. I don't remember if I was on this update or this one, the one that was rolled back. I'm not quite sure. But either way, when I went to go in and do the manual update, because my unit did not have it yet, I clicked here and I had to download my 923 plus PAT file. By the way, I know it says 1522 plus. It's a long story. That was a 1522 plus, and then I switched over to a 923 plus to test some stuff. Long story. I downloaded that PAT file, and when I tried to update it in DSM from DSM 7.2 update 0 to update 2, it would not let me. It said, hey, you first got to update to DSM 7.2 update 1. So I went in and did that, and from these fixed issues, I was like, it's nothing. That's a very small update. It should be pretty easy. But then you realize that this is a BTRFS volume issue that was being repaired. And so that update on a DS 923 Plus with very little going on took at least 20 minutes. I think it might have even taken longer. It was a very long update. And I'm going through and like, all right, come on, let's get this done. And so as soon as the update finished, I immediately updated to DSM 7.2 update 2. And that is where everything went wrong. And so what happened was, I got a warning that flashed on screen that said, hey, by the way, Storage Manager is doing something. Are you okay still updating? It's probably not a good idea. And I'm just trying to get this done, trying to knock this out. And I'm used to being able to just click through stuff with Synology and say, yeah, it's probably fine. And so I clicked through and said, yeah, continue anyway. It's all fine. That was my mistake, because as soon as I updated to DSM 7.2, I opened the package center and I saw error right here. We can look at the logs and see what had happened. So we can see that this package center from 2 hours ago was the update from DSM 7.2 update 0 to update 1. And what happened was it was going through and it was reinstalling these packages. Something to do, as far as I can tell, with the way that they were stored on the BTRFS volume. They changed it over, and so they were actually reinstalling these packages for some reason, or moving them or something like that. And that was the warning I actually got that I just did not pay attention to and didn't screenshot or anything like that. So I just clicked continue. When I did that, I broke my packages. And this was also a strong break, because normally if you break a package on Synology or there's like an update that's incompatible, you just hit repair. In this case, it was just error and there was no way to repair these packages. What I had to do was uninstall the packages and then reinstall them. Thankfully, the only packages here that actually have data in them were Active Backup for Business and Photos. The rest are just helper packages. And both of these support being uninstalled and reinstalled flawlessly, because you can just uninstall it and reinstall it. And as long as during the uninstall process, you don't delete all your data, then when you install it again, it just says, oh, hey, this is the data I've got, and just keeps running. So it was not a big deal in this case, but that's the first time I've ever actually had broken packages from just following what regular users would be doing. And so my advice to you, if you're updating to DSM 7.2 update 2 because you've had these issues that are in the release notes, that's totally fine as far as I can tell. What you need to do is you're going to need to first update to update 1 if you've not done so already. If you update to update 1, wait an hour after updating and make sure all the packages are done changing over. So just give it some time and let it do its thing. Then you can update manually using the actual PAT file if it's not on your system yet. After that, when you hit the update, if you see any warning that says, hey, Storage Manager is doing something or anything like that, don't just hit continue because you're like, it's probably fine, because you may end up with broken packages just like I did. So that is my warning to you. In this case, it was not a big deal. I mean, it was just on a test system, and either way, all the data was still on there, but it's still not something that is great. So I will give you that warning. Now, the last piece I want to talk about was the Western Digital Device Analytics, because I don't see this changing at all. So under fixed issues, it says adjusted the suggestions generated by Western Digital Device Analytics. And so to me, the suggestions are what is printed to the end user who is running the update and seeing the warning. So I was actually able to find them on Western Digital's side when I actually came in and I looked through DSM and I found the actual JSON file that actually contains all the information about what is printed to the end user. Go ahead and open this up and kind of show you how to read it. So essentially this is just a dictionary that you say what the error is, and then it says what the user is printed. And this one right here is from my forum site that I'll leave a link to down in the description below. And this is it from DSM 7.2 update 0. This is what the end user was told in DSM. And if we scroll and find the Western Digital power on hours, this right here is what the user will be sent the message in DSM. The drive has accumulated a large number of power on hours throughout the entire life of the drive. Please consider to replace the drive soon. For more information, please contact Western Digital support team. So this is right out of DSM, exactly what the user will be told. And so the way I read this statement, adjusted the suggestion generated by WDDA, to me, that is what is going to be changed because that is the suggestion. But when I go to that file in developer mode, when I go to that same file on DSM 7.2 update 2, we will see that it says right here, the drive has accumulated a large number of power on hours throughout the entire life of the drive. Please consider to replace the drive soon. For more information, please contact the Western Digital support team. So this is just a quick check that I did. I've not gone through and done my full due diligence on this yet, so take this with a grain of salt. Due to the fact that I've not checked everything, it could be a different wording somewhere else or anything like that. And it also could be the fact that this unit is a DS923 Plus. Synology has discontinued WDDA from ever installing on devices 23 and beyond, and the 1522 model also does not have WDDA, even if the drives are compatible. So that may be why this .pat file for the 923 Plus did not give that update, due to the fact that this message will never be displayed to the user due to the fact that the 923 Plus does not have WDDA. It's very common for code just to be left like this, just because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's good to have the dictionary just in case you need it, rather than completely delete a bunch of stuff for every single specific model, because that's how you get broken stuff versus having unused stuff. But that may be why this just did not get updated, or it could also be wording in a different place. I'm planning on doing a conclusion video for WDDA because it's kind of been discontinued by a lot of stuff. Very happy with that. I'm planning on doing that video later date, and we'll do a lot more research. I'm going to do it on a 1819 Plus to actually test out and see what the warning is on that model, which is still compatible. You can also trick WDDA to run on a Seagate drive by just hitting a couple terminal commands and making it think it's compatible. But that is the last thing I wanted to mention. All right, so overall, DSM 7.2 update 2 has a lot of really important bug fixes in my opinion, but it is important to remember, if you're updating to it, make sure not to just say yes, continue, I don't care, to any menus that may pop up. And when you're updating to update 1, give it some time afterwards because it's actually reconfiguring the way packages work. If you want to hire me for a project, there's a hire me link down in the description below. And have a good one. Bye.